Before you pack your moving truck and drive all the way out here to Pennsylvania, there's some things you should know about living here that may or may not be a deal breaker for you. So today I'm going to go through everything you should know before moving to Pennsylvania. The first thing you should know about Pennsylvania is it's big. In fact, it would take you about 4.5 hours to drive from, east to west or west to east side. So you should know it's broken down into really distinct districts. The way I look at it, at least, is there's the eastern Pennsylvania, western Pennsylvania coast, and then there's kind of the in-between. Eastern Pennsylvania is kind of close to its proximity to New York City and New Jersey. It has places like where I personally live, which is the Lehigh Valley, which is Allentown, East and Bethlehem area, and Philadelphia, which is really close to me. You have the western side, that's going to be places like Pittsburgh and things like that. It has this more industrial tech culture. And then you have central Pennsylvania. So this is places like Lancaster, and those are going to be smaller, more rural farmland areas. I think more people live towards the outskirts. There's bigger cities, and then there's the western side. So those are kind of the three main distinct parts of Pennsylvania that you should know about. Then the big thing I would tell you if you're about to make a move here, or you're even thinking about making a move here, is that taxes can be a little bit of a mixed bag. So Pennsylvania has a income tax rate of 3.07%, and it's one of the lowest in the United States. Obviously, there are even some states that have zero, so that's why I say one of the lowest. But when it comes to income tax states, we have one of the lowest at flat rate of 3.07%. Depending on where you are, property taxes can be relatively high. Now, it is worth researching tax rates depending on what area that you're going to look to live in. Some areas are high, some areas are low, but the general cost of living when it comes to housing in Pennsylvania is a lot cheaper than a lot of other areas, and we could talk about that in a second. But property taxes are kind of a mixed bag depending on what area you are, what section that you're looking to live in. They can be extremely high or extremely low, and Pennsylvania just as a whole has a little bit higher property taxes than some other areas. Now, last thing before we get off of taxes is going to be the sales tax. Pennsylvania has a sales tax of 6%. With some counties adding additional sales tax. Now, if you're coming from an area that does not have a sales tax, that might be a shock to you. So every time you spend money, unless it's on essentials, so mostly food and clothes, you're going to get charged extra 6% on top of that. That goes to the Pennsylvania government. Just thought I'd let you guys know about that. Pennsylvania, being in the Northeast, gets 4 distinct seasons. There's winter, spring, summer, and fall. And you can know which one you're in because they come with an attitude. Winter can be very cold, very snowy, very icy, especially in like the northern mountainous areas. Doesn't matter what part you're in. Pennsylvania gets a lot of snow. Not a lot comparative to some areas. Some areas get a ton of snow. But Pennsylvania does get a lot of snow, gets icy. You got to know about that. Whereas the summer can be the opposite extreme. We can get really hot, really humid days, sometimes breaking up into the 100 degrees. So just know we have both types, and those summers can get the occasional thunderstorms. Most of Pennsylvania is not an area that gets bad tornadoes or even hurricanes, natural disasters. We're pretty tame on that, so you don't really have to worry about that besides the occasional thunderstorm. Sometimes we'll get a tornado warning, sometimes we'll get a small hurricane, but other than the occasional thunderstorm and then the snowstorms that we get in the winter, it's really not that bad. Now, the other two seasons are obviously the in-betweens, the springs and the falls. Spring is beautiful, has a very high pollen count in this area, so if you are allergic to pollen, consider that. During the spring, especially, high pollen count, and it can, start to irritate some people. Then the fall, it's kind of the opposite. It's got stunning foliage, probably the most beautiful time of the year here in Pennsylvania. So there's that. I don't really have much to say about it. It's prepare for weather changes and just know that you're going to need seasonal clothing for all 4 times of the year. Before I go on to the next point, I just want to point out that we always have people calling, texting, and emailing us when they're looking to move to Pennsylvania and surrounding areas. So if you're looking to move or you have any questions, please don't not only forget to like and subscribe to our channel, because we're always making videos, but feel free to reach out to us using the contact info in the description to reach out to my team, and the pinned comment. Feel free to reach out. We'd love to help people. We absolutely love it. Now, you're probably wondering if Pennsylvania is affordable. I talked about the property taxes and how they're higher than a lot of other areas, but really when it comes to cost of living, compared to states like New York, New Jersey, Maryland, all these surrounding areas, Pennsylvania is pretty touted as one of the more affordable areas, especially when it comes to housing and the housing costs. So again, depending on what you're looking for and depending on, your budget in the area, houses are relatively affordable. But not just housing, when it comes to the cost of really anything from food to groceries, what have you, Pennsylvania is touted as pretty affordable. Whereas some of these bigger cities like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh can have a little bit more expensive cost of living, especially the rural and suburban areas have very cheap places. But even Philadelphia, Pittsburgh is cheaper living than something like New York City, because it doesn't matter where you go across Pennsylvania, is pretty affordable to live. Now, Pennsylvania has a strong history. It played a huge role in the American Revolution, and just American, being one of the original 13 colonies, has huge roots inside of, history. So people come here all the time, whether they're looking at sites like Independence Hall, the Liberty Bell, they're going to Gettysburg. If you're a history buff, you're going to find countless museums, monuments, historic places that you're going to want to visit. So we have a strong history place here, and if you're a history buff, you're going to love it. That's something you should know. Next is the job market. If you're moving somewhere, you have to earn a living. The Pennsylvania job market varies dramatically, but in a good way. Depending on what sector you're looking to go in, we have strong job markets. Now, as I said, central Pennsylvania is very, architecture and like farmland. There are some areas in between there that aren't like that, but when it comes to eastern Pennsylvania, you're going to be looking at finance, healthcare, education, as well as universities and other big companies out there. In western Pennsylvania is more manufacturing and healthcare. So depending on what your job is, that can also make a decision on where you're going inside of Pennsylvania. And there's just plenty of good high-paying jobs in good sectors here. Now let's talk about something I absolutely love, which is the food. Pennsylvania is famous for diverse foods, from Philadelphia cheesesteaks to like Amish type foods to pierogies, which is funny because when I didn't know, I've grew up in Pennsylvania for so long, I didn't know that pierogies didn't really exist outside of Pennsylvania. Maybe some states have them, but whenever I go to states, even ones that are nearby, people don't really know what pierogies are, which is weird. But we have a lot of festivals, fairs, and the culture is great, and it's focused on food, of course. Also, what you should know is that if you love the outdoors, you're gonna pick the right state by coming to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has a ton outdoor amenities. They're abundant. There's state parks, hiking trails. We have proximity to a lot of mountains. Outdoor enthusiasts that love, fishing, skiing, kayaking, hiking, whitewater rafting, whatever. You're going to be right at home with Pennsylvania. If you like to hunt, there's plenty of hunting. If you like to go on hikes, there's plenty of hiking. If you're a mountain biker, what have you. If you like anything in the outdoors, Pennsylvania is probably going to have it for you. And I always forget to mention that there is the Appalachian Trail that runs through Pennsylvania. Obviously, it's huge, but a section of the Appalachian Trail is here in Pennsylvania too. Now, Another thing you need to know is that Pennsylvania can get a little passionate about their sports teams. So I will point out what their sports teams are. For the NFL, we have obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Philadelphia Eagles. For the NBA, we have the 76ers. For the NHL, we have the Penguins. For Major League Baseball, we both have the Phillies, obviously in Philly, and the Pirates. There's plenty of college football and sports going on, particularly with Penn State. That gets a huge following, and people can be very passionate about it. So if you're moving here and, you want to get into sports, maybe you want to rep some local pride, those are the local teams. Another thing you need to know about Pennsylvania is that it has unique liquor laws. A lot of states you can just kind of walk into any gas station or whatever and buy alcohol, where Pennsylvania is a little unique. Beer must be either purchased from bars or distributors or licensed grocery stores. They don't. Some gas stations that serve food inside can have it. They're a little strict on who can do it. Sundays are often have limited hours for a lot of these places that serve alcohol. So if you're finding yourself wanting alcohol on a Sunday, it's a little harder to find. Whereas wine and spirits are only sold. They're sold separately from alcohol, but wine and spirits are only sold by state-run stores. So Pennsylvania is a little weird on their alcohol laws, which is strange to me. And last but not least, depending on what part you're going into Pennsylvania, if you're living in Philadelphia, the Lehigh Valley, or Pittsburgh, you don't really have to worry about this. But there are a lot of Amish populations nearby, particularly in Lancaster County, which is in central Pennsylvania. They're really good at craftsmanship. They're a hallmark of the state. I don't personally see them too much. You have to go really into Lancaster around here to see them. But just know there's a lot of Amish culture and things like that to keep in mind. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to become Amish to move here. You definitely don't. But if you're moving to like Lancaster area, keep in mind that there is a big Amish community out there. That's been really it. If you have any questions about Pennsylvania as a whole, again, feel free to reach out to my team. But subscribe to this channel. Check out the video that's popping up on screen now and watch more about living in this area. Learn some more. If you have any questions, feel free to obviously reach out to my team again, but leave a comment down below. Let me know that you're watching it. I do this for free to help people out, and I want to know that you guys are getting value out of it. Talk soon. Have a great day.